This week, the White House announced that 3 common IVF drugs will be sold at more than 70% off through a new government website launching next year. The plan also pushes drug makers to boost production here in the U.S., but it falls short of the president's campaign promise for universal free coverage.
So first and foremost, complicated question to start. For folks who are unfamiliar with the IVF process, kind of walk through how a cycle works, because it's multi-parts.
Yeah.
Walk us through how that works.
So IVF, in vitro fertilization, as opposed to in vivo fertilization, which is the natural process that happens inside the human body. So essentially what you do is you have the egg and the sperm meet in a petri dish or a test tube. So that means you have to take out the sperm, which is usually through a donation, and you have to retrieve the egg. But the way to do that is to stimulate the woman's ovaries with expensive fertility drugs, cause lots and lots of eggs to sort of mature, and then have her ovulate and retrieve those eggs using a needle and procedures that are also costly, as well as imaging tests. And then of course do the implantation. Sometimes that involves genetic testing on the embryo as well to make sure that it's healthy and stable, and then putting it back into the woman's uterus. That's called the embryo transfer. So that entire process, all the way from the stimulation to the embryo transfer, is considered one cycle of IVF.
And I think everybody kind of knows that this isn't a cheap process, but I don't know if people know just how expensive it is. We were talking during the break a little bit. I mean, what's the most expensive part?
Yep, so the entire IVF cycle costs usually one cycle, one round, from $15,000 to $30,000. Okay, and that doesn't include all the post-pregnancy care. But if you look at the kind of composition of that, the fertility drugs are about $3,000 to $6,000. The actual procedures and the imaging is usually about $12,000 to $20,000. And then those genetic tests and sometimes the embryo storage, those can be up to $5,000 to $10,000. So putting this all together, and everyone, as we said, doesn't always succeed on the first try. So imagine multiple rounds of these at a price tag of $15,000 to $30,000. It really makes it out of reach for most Americans.